late last night. Lloyd Howell Jr. resigned his position after 2 years as leader of the NFL Players Association. He says, it's clear my leadership has become a distraction to the important work the NFLPA advances every day. So for that reason, I'm stepping down. Hope this will allow them to maintain focus and player members ahead of the upcoming season. Was this only a matter of time, Bert?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think when there's a breach of trust and when the players don't think that you have their best interest in mind at all times, because of the uphill battle that I think NFL players are fighting in these situations nonstop, it's over. You know, I think I said earlier in the week I thought it was over. You know, I just the collusion thing was like a holy grail for the NFLPA, right? Like, and when D. Smith was in charge, pursuing that collusion case was a very important piece. And so the idea that they'd have the information on the Russell Wilson negotiation, the information on what happened behind closed doors at that owners' meetings, behind the text messages between Dean Spanos and Michael Bidwell, that all indicated that the NFL was suppressing the players' abilities to get fully guaranteed contracts, which, by the way, I'll say this again, it's not in the basketball CBA, the baseball CBA, the hockey CBA, or the football CBA, either that players have to or can't have guaranteed contracts. Like, that all happens through individual negotiations. That's the market, right? So the only way football players will ever get there is through individual negotiations. That has to start with the quarterback contracts. And so the fact that the Deshaun Watson contract in 2022 didn't lead to more fully guaranteed contracts was a big loss for the players. And what all that evidence shows is there was a coordinated effort by the owners to prevent Watson's deal leading to more fully guaranteed contracts. And having the evidence of that having happened and not shouting from not shouting it from the not climbing on the mountaintop and shouting it and announcing it to everybody, like, look what we have. But beyond that, being complicit and like covering it up was a really, really, really tough look for the NFLPA. And then you hear about his involvement with the private equity firm that's been approved, and there's a small group of private equity firms that have been approved to buy into
which
teams.
He continues to serve as a consultant for. It's like, you know, it gets brought up. They ask him about it. It's like, we'll do our due diligence on it. But it's like, this is an issue. If you're in any way representing either ownership or someone who has an interest in ownership, then even as a consultant, that's a conflict of interest. You can't represent the players and in any way represent owners. So, you going to step down? No. I'm going to keep that gig.
I'm not stepping down. I got this. It's a sweet gig.
It's a consulting gig. It's the best gig in the world.
Are you kidding me? Look, Bert, I don't think anybody's surprised. No player, no fan is surprised that owners colluded to keep the numbers down. And I don't think anybody's surprised by the two guys who were texting about it. Like, smart owners would be like, dude, we're not going to text about this. Bidwell and Spanos were like, hey, man, that was great.
Putting it in writing is
I'm not going to, I'm going to do this with Kyler Murray, too. This is awesome. They're actually put it in a text.
Thanks, buddy. That's really going to help us with Justin Herbert.
Can you send me over whatever you wrote up as a boilerplate, and I'll just change the names and dates?
Hey, let's get this guy in on the text chain. Let's just all put it in writing. So that's not a surprise. I guess the surprise to me is that some players continued to defend him, and that Howell would think that this was a good idea, that, hey, I'll just keep this quiet. It will never come out. Like, can you make a case for why he wouldn't shout from the rooftops, as you said? I'm trying to think of it from his perspective.
There were a couple different things that I had heard. One, like Pablo Torre and Mike Florio helped uncover this week, which was that there was another case involving the running back situation that implicated J.C. Treader that never became public, and maybe there was some sort of quid pro quo there where you keep this quiet, we'll keep that quiet, which wouldn't be a good look for the NFLPA either, because now you're protecting an individual from looking bad at the cost of making making public like a case that makes all the owners look bad. And then there was also the case of the legal fees in this, which I don't want to bore anybody with the details, but what I had heard was there was about $12 million incurred in legal fees, which again is evidence that the lawyers always win by NFL lawyers in this case, and that the NFL felt like they could pursue the legal fees. Well, part of the reason why the NFLPA hired a businessman, Lloyd Howell, to come in and replace D. Smith is that they felt like they needed to get their finances in order because they weren't. And so like $12 million is a pretty big tab to pay. And maybe the NFL had worked with the NFLPA and said, hey, we won't pursue the legal fees if you agree to confidentiality on the findings here. Because they knew even though they won the case, it makes them all look absolutely terrible.
Right.
All right. In terms of the players and their, as Michael was saying, like, their support of it, who do they go to now? Because, for years, it was like Zoe, I remember talking about it years ago, and the other people talking about like the union and how they would just like throw their hands up at times. Because, as you said, pointing to other unions and how other players get things like guaranteed contracts, which almost seems like a redundancy. It's a contract. How's it not guaranteed? Well, they're not in the NFL.
Right.
What do players need now? Who do they get? Is there anyone out there who can take over this role and somehow get NFL players into the same echelon that virtually every other professional athlete in the other three major sports, they already have, just as a matter of fact. It's taken for granted that contracts in other leagues, of course, they're guaranteed. They're contracts. Who do they get now?
Let's start here. The job of NFLPA executive director is incredibly challenging. It's one reason why, I defended D. Smith at a lot of turns, because I think the ultimate trump card any of these unions have is a work stoppage. The ultimate trump card is to take money out of the owners' pockets.
Right.
The rank and file NFL player, because there are so many of them, right? The rank and file NFL player is going to last 2 or 3 years in the league and maybe make $1 million total.
I looked that up a week or two ago, just in a discussion I was having with somebody when we were discussing the average career length in the NFL. And they were saying it's 5-6 years. I said it's way, way less. And when I looked it up a couple of weeks ago, I think it was 29 months.
So we all think of the star players, but that's the rank and file. That's 80% of the league, is guys who are barely going to make anything. And these are guys who've worked their entire lives to get there, and they know, I can't sit out a year.
I take that back. 3.3 years.
Okay, so but
still, I mean, it's not the 5-year average.
Not 5.
If you've ever covered one of these teams, and you guys have been in the locker room, the difference between covering it and being a fan of it and just following it is when you get in the locker room and you spend a year around a team, you see how quickly guys filter out, and the number of guys, how small the number of guys that actually stick around is relative to the total number. And so it's much harder to get NFL players to sign off on a work stoppage. 2 and 3 year guys who are like, I'm not doing this. I'm only going to be in it for 2 years. Right.
And if we stop work for a year, I'm not even going to be able to make the $600,000 I was going to make for this 1 year. I can't afford to hold out for a job that I don't even really have to begin with.
And the owners know it, and that's why, in 2011, it's why the NFLPA in July accelerated talks and tried to get, because they knew it was going to be really difficult to get everybody on board with actually holding the line. And that wasn't a strike. That was a lockout, Yeah. And so the NFL owners know that. And so I think one of the big things that the players are going to look for right now, and based on what they just went through, it's going to be trust. And I think that's probably what puts anybody who's not an ex-player at a disadvantage. I think that there's, and maybe it's got to be some combination of an ex-player and a lawyer, whatever it is. But I think trusting that they have trusting that the person in charge is looking out for their best interest at all times and isn't cutting side deals with the owners and isn't susceptible to the tricks that the owners pull. Like, that's going to be really, really important.
Tell me what you think about this. I had an anecdote shared with me just a couple of weeks ago, and this is from an agent who said the bottom line is the players don't care enough. A lot of them just want to smoke weed and play video games.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's the rank and file.
I find that to be an unfair characterization.
I don't think that's just the National Football League.
So they just don't care enough.
But you know what that speaks to? That speaks to the age of the players too. Is like
Hardy's thinking that's not a bad life, man. That's not bad.
The rank and file player again, like such a high percentage of the league because of those numbers, because guys don't last. Like what you're talking about, they're all like 22, 23, 24, 25 years old. They're not worried about the big picture. The rank and file NBA player is probably making $5 million a year, right? He can count on maybe playing 7 or 8 years in the league. Or if it doesn't work out in the NBA, he can go overseas and play somewhere else. Like, it's baseball. Like, those guys have guaranteed contracts. It's very difficult to get into a position where it's difficult to get solidarity with a group of guys who think that there's a good chance.
There's no tomorrow. They're thinking I'm
going to be selling insurance in 2 years, man. I got to get my $700,000 now.
They're not thinking like T.J. Watt, who's on his once again highest paid non-quarterback. I got another contract coming down the road. They're thinking this might be it.
It's really interesting, Michael, because I mean, you're not talking about the NFL as a whole necessarily. If you really focus in on the guys that they need to get on board, it's the 21, 22, 23-year-old guys that need to come on board with this idea that we all need to rally together in order to get this thing done. And if there's one group of players in the NFL right now who are mostly interested in smoking weed and playing video games, it's probably the younger guys. Can you imagine someone coming to you as a 22-year-old and say, hey, it's your first job here, but the first thing we need to do before you even put on pads or go to your first practice and start being an NFL player, we got to have this meeting about collusion, and we need to talk about a work stoppage. We doing this like,
what?
I just got here. Yeah. I have no idea what you're saying.
And
to
I'm
me
not
right
thinking
now.
about thinking about the next generation. I'm not trying to get mine right now.
I'm not interested in any of this stuff. And those are the guys specifically that they need to get on board.
Right. Yeah. And there's even been examples, and the owners are sharks. And that's the other part of it. Like, I mean, there are examples of, look at the executive committee of the NFLPA from 2011. There were like a handful of guys who never played again. And there's at least suspicion on the part of a lot of guys that there was a little bit of a retribution for, okay, like, well, you were going to be a hard liner on this. You know what? You're going to have a hard time finding a job now. So there are all of these things that are at play with being a good union head and everything that goes in to doing that job at a high level in the setting of professional sports. It's just not the same in the NFL. It's just not. And it's like, and the length of career, the career earnings, the number of players there are, all plays into it. It's just it's a really hard job. And if I'm a player, like after what I just went through, watching what was going on with Lloyd Howell, with the private equity connection, with the bearing of the collusion suit, I'm really probably distrustful of the union. And so that's why I think they have to find somebody they can trust. And to me, it's probably some combination of an ex-player or a lawyer, whether one's on top of the other or the other way around.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.